Howdy, y'all. This week on Woodshop Cowboy, we are organizing our closets. So, this New Year's Day, a show came out that everybody's talking about the magical world of tidying up. I read the book a couple years ago, and I thought it was quite the little experience. So, part of the tidying up that we've done in my own house. This is the tail end of a renovation for an entire room. I needed to organize the closet. So I came in and kind of ripped the closet down to studs and rebuilt it. Did the floor, did the painted the walls, and now finally I get to work on the little closet organizer that goes in there. And so the first thing that I did was kind of rip out all my pieces out of plywood. I had a couple pretty long cuts. The two sides of the case about 15 inches deep, and each one of them is about 66 inches long, so a little over 5 feet long. When I do casework like this, what I tend to do is I go down to Lowe's or the local home center, and I get them to rip my plywood to near close dimensions, and then I rip it down with a better blade so I don't get the same amount of tear out. Next, it's time to rip my drawers to length. Now, I had a plan for these drawers. I wanted them relatively shallow, so I only ripped them about some lengths about 6 inches wide, and then I cross cut them to length. Now, when I build drawers like this, oftentimes I'm putting the bottom in. I use 1/4 inch plywood for the most part, so I run a quick dado on it. Every time I do casework, I tend to make some sort of face frame. Here I am attaching one of those face frames. I just rip a piece of hardwood that matches the color. So this was maple plywood. I ripped a piece of maple for it, and I just pin that in, glue and pin it in with some brads. And here's a shelf that I'm working on. I assembled this entire thing with pocket hole screws. I know some people don't like that. They want, dados and they want rabbits and all sorts of joinery. But if you got to get something done fast, and quite frankly, anybody that has 2 young children like I do probably does not have that much time to work in the shop. I want to maximize it as much as I can. I want to build something rather than, build something perfectly. So I am looking forward to using any sort of shortcut or something joinery method that's pretty quick and easy. And for me, every single time I seem to come back to pocket holes when I need them the most. I am looking for that the time efficiency there. They're quick, they're strong. I've never had one really break on me. If it's not being super used and abused, I wouldn't use it for something outside. But for inside work, for interior work, and for casework when I'm using a high quality plywood, I'm all about it. When I cut really big pieces of 1/4 inch, I have a very small, kind of a weird access. I don't have great access to the basement there, so I need to cut everything down to about a 4x4 first. So I rip it to the right width, and then I cut it to length. This project I used Sherwin-Williams almost exclusively with my stuff, especially when I'm doing some paints, and I really liked their latex paint that they use for cabinet work. If you asked for it, use the latex rather than the oil paint. The oil paint didn't work so well for me for a different project that I used. The colors came out very equitable. They were the same color, so they matched, but I definitely like the semi-gloss latex better. So here I am, just kind of assembling the drawers that'll eventually go in there. You can see I kind of tap everything together, glue, screw, and move on with my life. I'm not here to spend every single day working it. In the fronts, the drawer fronts, I just cut out a small notch using the bandsaw right there, real quick. If you're an experienced user, you can do that long back out like I did. If you're not experienced, use some relief cuts and cut them in. And I just sanded it smooth on the oscillating sander, and then moved on to the router to get some roundovers so it wouldn't bother me when I reached in and grabbed it, pulled it out. Now, if you are building your own shop, I highly suggest getting a router. They are the single most versatile tools in the shop. Of course, you can spend, you know, $200 on the tool, and then you'll spend about $1,000 on accessories. So once I had everything, every single part kind of cut out and put together, I started assembling it. Now I chose full extension slides, and that's a pretty good choice. I really liked it. But as I was assembling this, I realized very quickly, if you are going to be building casework like this and using full extension slides, it is imperative that you get every single angle at 90 degrees. While the slides are super convenient, they are also extremely difficult to get to pull out really nicely unless you have it exactly spaced. So here I am working on my spacing technique, and what I do is I kind of put my fronts on, and then I figure out how big that space is with the cards, and then I split them up into a couple different even kind of spacers, and now I was able to space the bottom and the top and the middle exactly right, and I just nailed the pins, and I put a little glue on the back of those drawers, and I nailed them in with a pin nailer. Pop, 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 and done. And they've held up great in the couple of months since I've built this project. Drawer pulls the full way out, goes the full way in, came out really nice, started stacking everything in, and all of a sudden this closet that had once been this real big eyesore and this frustrating spot for us becomes a really nice place to store all our stuff. So thank you for being here. You can catch me on Instagram, you can catch me on Twitter, catch me at the blog www.woodshopcowboy.com.